Todoroki Shoto wasn't the most affectionate person. He was quiet, keeping to himself in social setting, and barely touching people unless he absolutely needed to. Therefore, Listener was his exact opposite. She spent most of her time laughing, often for no reason at all, and she found comfort in physical touch, walking side by side with people and linking their arms together, ruffling their hair, or hugging them. These were the way she showed affection. Her quirk, slumber, basically superpowered her hypothalamus, the area of the brain controlling sleep and awakening, giving her the ability to manipulate the wakefulness of other people's. Listener was mystified by Todoroki. She'd heard reasons for why he slammed down hopping up, something to do with a kettle, but she wanted him to be happy and comfortable around the class. It was just a nice thing to do, right? No romantic feeling involved. 1. On the bus. Class 1A collapsed onto the bus, waiting for the outside of the USG in various stage of panic, sirens wailing within the building behind them. Because they'd been told to evacuate, even though there were still villains and heroes in there. The friends. Listener wrung her hands as she slid into the seat next to Todoroki, who stared out the window. Hey. She tapped him on the right shoulder, instantly whipping her finger back when she felt the cold. Shit, your right side is still freezing. I'm sorry. He frowned. Are you alright? Oh, yeah, it was just a little cold, that's all. Listener smiled, trying to show him that she was alright. She was alright. No, did you overuse your quirk? Listener winced. Now that he mentioned it, she'd used her quirk on a lot of villains in the USG, and overuse of slumber didn't affect Listener well at all. Well, maybe. She yawned. Oh, shh. Before she could even finish her sentence, she was out like light, her head falling onto Todoroki's shoulder as she immediately went into stage 3, slumber, a deep sleep that allowed her body to repair the damage her quirk took. He flinched aggressively, but the girl leaning against him stayed asleep. He almost pushed her off, sure that Hyomomo could make a pillow, but something about the gentle warmth of her body made him stay still. Todoroki felt an unusual flutter of warmth in his chest, like a ray of sun flinding him after a cold day. He smiled and adjusted the way he sat to that Listener would be more comfortable. 2. Movie night. Moving into the dorm had been an exciting experience for everyone, but what Listener was specifically looking forward to was movie nights. The girl cheered, throwing the DVDs in her arms up into the air and laughing as they rained down onto the beanbag surrounding her. Something about her enthusiasm and the way she looked at single snapshot of clarity made a flush spread across Todoroki's cheeks, which she hid by pretending to be very interested in the back of Cinderella. Oh, good choice, Todoroki! Listener grinned, brushing his finger as she reached for the movie in his hand. I'll go put this one in. How a girl could be so bubbly when her quirk was sleep astounded everyone who knew Listener. And just like that, Todoroki was back to trying not to blush. What was with this girl doing to him? Listener settled onto the couch next to the heterochromatic boy, leaning into him just like she had on the bus. He tried to explain it as the fact that after Aizawa had recovered and heard separately from each member of UA after the USG incidents, it ordered Listener and Shoto to stick together at all time, knowing that if Listener fell asleep, he could be here to help. Something about his quirk making her comfortable, or the fact that her subconscious mind trusted him already. His thought process was interrupted as he realized that the movie has already started. He tried to focus on the screen like his classmate and not on the girl with her leg curled up under her next to him. Todoroki turned out somewhere between the part where all his classmates started crying and when the numerous bags of cheese finally ran out. So given his mental worrying, he almost set himself on fire when something dropped onto his shoulder out of nowhere. He relaxed it when he realized that it was just Listener's head, but frowned, realizing that even though the height difference was lessened sitting down, she still seemed slightly uncomfortable. ever so hesitantly, Todoroki reached around her back to sling his arm around her shoulder, sinking into the couch a little more as her head fell onto his chest. God, she's adorable. And the second time that listener fell asleep on Shoto, he fell in love with her. 3. Training. Listener groaned as Midoriya's legs flew upward and slammed into her chest, sending her skirting backward. Combat training was her favorite part of US curriculum. Her quirk definitely wasn't useful in a close-up fight. But with a week to go until midterms, Aizawa said she needed to refine her self-defense style instead of relying on her quirk, and so here she was. She pushed off the ground, dodging Midoriya's punch and spinning around, kicked his side instead. He attempted to grab her ankle, but she planted her foot on his chest and pushed so she stumbled back. Listener rushed toward him, remembering something Uraraka had taught her a week ago as Midoriya threw his fist forwards. She spun around so that he punched the hair next to her face, then grabbed his arms at the wrist and shoulder, throwing him forwards, so he leaned back first on the first with an oof. Listener was quick to twist his arm around so he couldn't stand. "Do you yield?" I yield. Midoriya panted, accepting her hand up. "You've gotten good, listener. I landed maybe 10 hits on you today." She smiled at this compliment, wandering back to the stand where the rest of the class waited their turns. "Hello, Shoto." Listener grinned, dropping into the seat beside the candy cane hair boy. Listener. He returned. "Nice work." She thanked him, reaching for her bag under her seat and pulling out her pencil case and cereal folder. It was then that Todoroki noticed the amount of bruises from being knocked around in training. There were heavy bags under her eyes too. "What are you doing?" Todoroki furrowed his eyebrow. Listener laughed, but it wasn't humorously. "Shoto, you're good at everything. You've got a powerful quirk, you move well, you're super smart. Those things, they don't come naturally. I need to study a lot, and I guess I just..." Listener. She looked at him, starting the process, when he shoved the books off her laps, but shutting abruptly when he pressed her finger to her lips. Listener. He repeated her name, and she couldn't help but fixate on how he could make her feel incredible just by saying her name. "How many hours of sleep have you been getting lately?" She looked away. Todoroki tilted her head up, forcing her to meet his strong gaze as he asked the question again. Listener sighed in defeat. "Less than an hour each night for a week?" "That's enough," Todoroki declared, leaning back and patting his thigh. "Come on, sleep." Wait, you want me to..." "I want you to get some sleep," he insisted, though his cheeks were turning pink. "Come on, please." She relented, curling up with her body across 2 chairs and resting her head into Shoto's laps. His hands instinctively went to her hair, not combing through the strand, but running his hand over in a calming fashion. "You're so beautiful," she heard him whisper before he closed her eyes. Bonus, birthday surprise. "Shoto!" Listener half yelled, half laughed from somewhere in her room, dragging out his name with a childish kind of gleefulness. "Yeah, listener?" Todoroki answered, leaning against the outside of the door. "You can come in now." He definitely wasn't prepared for her to excitedly yank open what he was leaning on and fell into his arm as she dragged him over to the bed, giggling profusely. Listener's laptop was set on top of the thick cover, some anime already cured up on the bright screen, a bowl of chips sat beside it, and a mountain of pillows stretching off for the wall. "I hope you like it," Listener admitted, most of her enthusiasm vanishing suddenly as she stared at Shoto. He leaned forward, cupping her face in his hand. "I love it, Listener. You couldn't prepare anything better for my birthday." She smiled, climbing onto the bed and patting the spot beside her as she tapped play. After hearing what he'd say at training, Listener had tracked him down and asked what it meant. He'd confessed his feeling for the girl who always fell asleep on him, and she had gladly returned them. since she'd been using her quirk to help him sleep without nightmare memories of his past plaguing him. Tonight, seeing that it was his birthday, she was trying something else. 30 minutes in, and Shoto's head had dropped onto her shoulder, though he wasn't quite asleep yet. In another 5 minutes, he had begun to hum sleepily. And finally, as Listener rested her head on his, he fell asleep. She smiled, stopping the movie and leaning back against the pillow as she gently kissed his forehead. Happy birthday, Sho.